to go live. Well, technically speaking, we already were live. It was all the other nonsense.
Uh, well, yeah, you know.
Approximately 45 minutes of just the waiting screen going over. I'm taking my beholders now. But anyways, welcome. I'm live with Suji here. Suji is from pilot.net, and she's here because we've started a game jam, or sorry, I shouldn't say we. She has started a game jam, which I am participating in, for producing a bunch of Lancer one-shot modules. And so I brought her here to the discussion dungeon today. Normally I have a fantasy map for this sort of thing. Suji, go ahead and drop yourself anywhere. Well, I shouldn't say anywhere on the map. This is Lancer, so I should use a deployment zone.
Oh, I'm not super familiar with Foundry. Can you help me find myself?
Only you can help you find yourself.
Oh, uh, let's see.
It doesn't work otherwise.
Is this me?
No, so what I'll do is I'll put you on the, if I just do this and I set ownership, then you will have a bigger ownership. Perfect.
I don't think that's me.
No, you are correct. That is not you. But you will see an actor inside the game in just a moment. That is
Is that it?
on the right side. Yep.
All right, let's get rid of this clock.
Yeah, I got that. So I'll just drag you right over there to your deployment zone. That's red, so apparently you're an enemy. We discuss that later.
I mean, I'm GM. I'm always jamming. I'm familiar with being the enemy.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the format here is, we'll probably do it the same way the fantasy format goes. All of these buildings are going to be rooms. Each time that you go into a room, you can find a discussion topic that we'll go over. It's yours. Obviously, we can go to any different direction, or it can go in a variety of places, but every 10 minutes, I'm going to roll for a random encounter. And if I get a 6 in the tradition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, there will be an encounter, which means I argue with you about the topic, even if I agree with you.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, just one question. I'm watching the live stream too, and I don't see my camera on there.
That's because it's not on right now. It's going to appear on one of these little video sections in just a moment.
Okay. Other than that, I am ready. I'm excited to be here. Let's see what you got for me.
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to start by telling folks about yourself before we cast you into the dungeon?
Sure. I'm Suji, she, her. I've been playing Lancer for about 2 years now, ish. I GM for about a year. I played like on and off in the other year. Hang out in GM corner a lot. I do a little bit of ComCon development when there's like a new feature that I personally want, and other people can also sometimes benefit from. So I would do that, and it's in the same philosophy for this actually, because I wanted to work on a one shot, and I didn't want to do it by myself. And I really wish there was some sort of Lancer one-shot game jam, and there wasn't one. So I'm being the change I want to see in the world.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right, so you have a variety of rooms to work through, a variety of buildings to choose from. If you would like any descriptions of the building before you waltz in, I can provide you with some hints as to what the topic will be. But besides that, I leave it to you. You can use the WASD, or you could drag your character around to move them.
Oh, pretty cool.
I don't think there's an active combat encounter, so there will not be any restrictions on your movement there.
Alright, can I just walk straight out this door?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that is a gate to the building here. You can see a comms, basically a system comms station.
Alright, let's go to the big satellite dish place. I'm sure that's important. What is this place?
Sounds good. So here you can find a log of all the missions that have been transcripted and sent, all the mission reports that have been sent back to the station as of recent.
All right. Yeah, let's head on inside and see what we can find here.
Well, so inside, like I said, there are a bunch of mission logs, and you see plenty of details about one-off missions that different Lancers have taken on. In the past, they are usually solo missions or taken on with a small team. And here the topic of discussion is one-shots in Lancer. Do you like them? Is there a point to one-shots in Lancer? Why do we have so many that are just like pickup games and not campaigns?
Oh, geez, yeah, that's a big topic, right? Lancer, I think, like the consensus and probably like the design philosophy is that it's a game with attrition, and it matters to a lot of GMs. I hear more from GMs than players, but also I just talk to more GMs than players. That like attrition is very important in Lancer.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if you're gonna have attrition, you have to have time, and generally you can't fit that in one session. And it's hard to schedule. Schedule is always a challenge in any tabletop RPG.
You think it's mostly a timing? Okay, so we have timing, tradition, and we have the actual like. It's not just like scheduling, but in terms of how many hours do you have to dedicate to an individual Lancer session also has a pretty big impact, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, there is definitely like time per session. But also like you can't fit a mission in a session, you know?
Not
Especially
generally.
true for Lancer.
Yeah.
I think there are games you can do that, but doesn't really work in Lancer, or at least like that's not the standard expectation from a Lancer game.
How many combat encounters do you usually include in your sessions?
I usually go for 3 to 4, usually leaning more towards 3
Mhm.
because I do like getting progression faster, generally speaking.
In terms of, so you'll have like fewer combats to progress the license level faster.
Right, yeah. And 3 to 4 is like a standard amount, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I would sometimes do 4, but 3 is common ones. A common structure I use is one sit rep for getting in, one sit rep for doing the thing you have to do, and one for getting out. That is like a very easy to use 3 combat structure.
Right. Very objective focused.
Right, as Lancer is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is certainly a way to look at it.
Now, when it comes to, do you think that one shots are like, how do you feel about them writ large? Are they like, oh, this is my favorite thing in the world, or like, this is a necessary evil? I have to be able to play, and if I, like, this is my one way of doing it.
That comes with you have to be in a campaign,
Yeah.
and it's fun, but it's also like a lot of commitments that not everyone can make.
That most people
Not
can make, it seems.
consistently. Perhaps, yeah. But also there's the GM player divide of how many people are willing to GM, how many people are wanting to play.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And
That's
putting
really
hours of time into each session prep can be a little bit more difficult. A lot of GMs have like ways to make it faster, make it easier, or they just get better. That is another factor that can help with time.
A couple comments from folks in the chat. So I wanna just say hi to them. Hello. Oh, a couple of them. So Dunder is actually He's not a player in my campaign. He's a faction player. He's using the KTB rules to play a pirate faction, and that's been layered
Okay.
over top the rest of the campaign. But so I definitely want to say hi to him. Jargo Neo, I think I recognize you from Pilot.net, however. Right, so it's not that one shots are necessarily bad. Right? You don't think of them as being bad, but it's like, okay, there would be so much more fun if we could like actually just participate in a campaign.
Sure, yeah, I think I would agree with that. It's not bad. It's just a different experience, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't even necessarily want to say it's worse because it does come with its own advantages. Um,
What are those?
it's easier to get into. Firstly, that's a huge
Mm-hmm.
one. Playing is more fun than not playing, generally.
The accessibility is a huge concern. That's absolutely true.
And in one shots, generally, you can try out different things more easily as well.
Like fewer consequences if you mess something up.
Sure, yeah, you
Definitely.
can.
That's how I approach the one shots. Like, oh, sweet, I can relax a little.
Yeah, but also like I know a lot of people like to have a ton of character ideas, and in one shot you can cycle through them really quickly. You're not going to be able to develop them as much, and that is a downside that you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna that you miss out on from not being in a campaign. But also like I don't know, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to want to go through a bunch of different character ideas, bunch of different builds.
Oh no, I love going
It's
through a
just a
bunch of different.
different mode of play. Oh, there's a role here.
Yes, I have not gotten a six, so I have nothing to fight with you about. It's
All right.
no, I love cycling through character ideas. I run West Marches primarily. I was running a 5e West Marches. Finally, after many years, we closed off the 5e portion. We're switching to Pathfinder Second Edition at the start of next year, which is in a month, right? But I also really want to do. I mean, I want to do a Lancer West Marches. That would be a lot of fun and give DMs an opportunity to go through their stuff. But it's you're right in that it is fun to go through a lot of different character ideas. It sucks that your only options for doing that are either to play at a lot of different conventional games, conventional campaigns, or to go through a lot of one shots, in which you'll never be able to develop those people. Like you're forced to either dump all of your time into the game to experience multiple characters and builds, or do a lot of one shots in which you're probably not going to return to these people. I don't know. Or
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
do you have character
I think
concepts
you're
that
right.
you're like, I need to bring it back? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think you're right. And yeah, you don't have to like throw it away totally. You can come back to it and reuse it. Um, you can even use the same character concept in multiple one shots and change it slightly. If you do want to see that character more, not necessarily more developed because it's not the same character at that time, right? Like different
Yeah.
direction that character concept can go.
Because the development is like a function of being with other people, right? How do they react to different scenarios around them? And in tabletop RPGs, those really get represented by. They're produced by the game, but they're represented by other people nearby. Is what it feels like.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Oh, Dunder has a question for you. How does Suji approach teaching new players the game? That's relevant to our one-shot question. How do you
Oh
do that?
yeah. Um, there's been a there's been some talk about that in the one shot channel. Some ideas that I'm partial to. Okay, so the one shots generally designed for new players, right? But there's also
Right.
um there's some demand for oh we just finished this module, where do we go next type of one shots. I found.
Yeah. They don't have to be. They
Um,
don't actually have to be for new players, especially in something like Lancer. You figured that that might be the exception, right?
I can't say. I don't really know what other games spaces are like too well.
We could get into that later then. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
no,
let's go
you're
back to the
definitely right.
question.
Yes.
How do we onboard new players? One method I'm really interested in is using pre-made characters, and that is a certain amount of like character hooks, some characteristics on like who they are, as well as like what their build is, and you get a reduced amount of customization. I actually have a draft for it. I don't know how to share it, so I won't. um,
You can always
but
share you can always share it on screen. That's not bad.
I'm not very good with OPS. That's why.
Oh no, it would be on Discord directly.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. It is just a draft, but I will pull it up. So this is inspired by a game called Dread. It's on. It's another indie game, horror type game,
Mm-hmm.
and like the main mechanic is that like you pull out blocks from Jenga tower, and every time it falls, someone dies or is no longer in play for whatever reason. And that one is very designed for one shots. And you want to go through character creation pretty quickly, and you also want, as a designer, to have some control over like who the characters are gonna be.
The characters are gonna be so that's like when you're teaching new players the game. Because
You
I'm
don't get
guessing
them
that
full control.
okay. Because I'm guessing that Thunder Moose was gonna ask that about Lancer specifically. Would your answer be different when it comes to Lancer? Or is that like your general approach? Like, hey, we're gonna have there's certain there's an expectation that we're going to tutorial. If I was going to generalize your statement, it would be like, hey, there is going to be an expectation that players are experiencing a tutorial to begin with in some way.
Experience a tutorial to begin with in some way. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. To have some sort of tutorial, right? The my idea behind present characters is that, right? How do we say this? I'll use an example that I have from a completely different game. It's a video game.
Okay.
I think I tried to get into Crusader Kings because I really enjoyed like those 4X type games, like Civilization and such. Even though it eats up so much time, it's like my guilty pleasure. And I tried to get into it and I couldn't because there's so much going on that I don't know what's important enough to focus on and what's not. So there's a lot of difficulty trying to figure out like, okay, what do I need to be doing right now?
Signal to noise ratio is off.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So there are things like a very common mistake in new players, I think, is undermounting, right? Putting main or light weapon in the heavy slot, or like not using up all your SP. Actually, that's it for undermounting. So you just like take that away. You don't have to worry about this. We got this for you. And you'll still be able to choose some of it. So for my example, I have like rookie character sheet. And the character sheet is like a series of like 10 questions about who the character is, like, but it's also like leading questions. So like, oh, what is something you learned in basic training or something like that? So that immediately means that the character has gone to some sort of basic training and are trained to be a lancer, but doesn't have a lot of like real life experience.
Right. Right. Okay.
And then like some other question would be like, during training, like you really like these to be your sidearms, what are they? And I give them 3 choices: it's double pistol, double tactical knives, or double missile rack. So another thing that a lot of new players like to do is like mixing 2 different auxiliary weapons, which is cool, right? But also, if you don't know what you're doing, it's just usually just bad.
It can go poorly, absolutely.
Oh, so you just take that option away from them.
Yeah.
And these are just pre-gen options. You don't have to use the pre-gen options.
Right. You're not like you're forcing it on people in the sense that like, all right, they should be adjusting themselves in some way, or like they should avoid problems that are common to the they should be avoiding problems that are common to the rest of the stream, I suppose. How do I put this?
Sorry, say that again.
Like they should. No, I had a word mix up there. It's been happening a lot today. Sorry, the aphasia coming back. I'm slowly going insane. No, so there's a bunch of trap options. Not even trap options.
No.
People making poor choices that are easy to stumble into, so easy to stumble into that they might not even be bad on their own, but they're just harder for new players to understand. Like the idea of like you have a mount and it can have a melee weapon and a ranged weapon on it, and also that ranged weapon, if it has a burst or a blast, if it has a radius or area of effect attack in some way, you're also attacking everybody within that area of attack at the same time that you're making a melee weapon attack. That's really different. The idea that you might have a melee weapon and a ranged weapon, and that could cause you to make 1 melee attack and like 6 ranged attacks in the same, not even within your whole turn. That's just like with an action, a quick action. You might be doing that with a skirmish just because of how like Lancer works. That's weird to a lot of people, especially if this is like not their first time in RPGs. If they're coming from the Dragon game, or really any kind of conventional fantasy game, especially, or conventional sci-fi games sometimes, it's just going to be a different experience.
Something I noticed one time is that in one of my first games, one of the players was attacking with a mortar, and I told them to make the attack rolls, and they asked, "Wait, this is not a saving throw?"
Oh my god!
And like I don't know I don't know why they would think this, right, at the time, because like I haven't really played Dragon game too much.
So, well, I'm doing something to somebody else.
Why would you roll saving throw?
Yeah, no, that's weird. It's funny because 4th edition, the only true successor to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 1st edition, the only edition besides the OG that I will accept, had these rolls where you would be rolling against static saves, right? You would have like a fortitude stat, and it was like fortitude, reflex, and something mental, whatever that was. Who cares? But generally speaking, if you were rolling for a fireball, you would just roll, and you would be rolling against the reflex save of everybody on there, such that you were not waiting for 20 monsters to individually set their own stuff, like roll their own saving throws. Because, God, wouldn't that be so annoying and frustrating and incomprehensibly slow and pointless?
For sure, it could be.
It's, well, in 5th edition, it is that way. And so, like, that's people's standard, is, like, just doing things the slowest possible way. It's for reasons of, it's just the way that it works, right? It's just like, well, if I'm doing something to somebody else, and I'm not rolling against their armor class, then they get a roll to see how effective I am. That's just their standard. It never occurs to them that it should be any different. All right, so I rolled a 6, so I have to pick something to... Either we can find about something that you said here, which is going to be difficult for me, because I think I agree with everything you've said. Or you can choose a new route. I haven't made any,
like, super hot takes yet. I think the hottest I've gotten is that, like, just take away options to make things easier, which, I don't know, I guess that could be a little bit controversial.
I've gotten flack for saying the same thing in D&D games or fantasy games, is saying like, hey, let's do like, no, we are doing a tutorial mission first, so you guys see what the mechanics are to begin with that you need to know. Which I'm not giving you the choice of leaving this town without a wagon or a cart or something to cart your goods, because there's going to be how you transport your. There's going to be a little bit of attention at the very least paid forward to the logistics of an adventure, the logistics of a mission or a dungeon crawl or whatever have you, because that stuff provides me with more, with more hooks for play. If there's a troll in the area, he doesn't have to kill the players to mess with them. He can kill the horse that's carting their stuff around, and maybe take the cart. And now the troll has a bunch of the players' stuff, and the players have to now chase the troll down. It's like, all right, that gives me. I'm just looking for some extra hooks by using the mechanics that are already in the game, but that people don't think about because it's not like on an inventory management screen in front of them. So, like, my job is to present those options to them to begin with. Right. Yeah, we're gonna have to move on to a different room for me to fight about this, because there's just like no way for me to. There's no way for me to fight on that. I have to have a different topic.
Alright, let's find the most controversial room. What do you think? What are some good controversial subjects here?
Good controversial rooms around us would be, let's see here. There's pilot. Over on the right hand side is a power generator that's been converted into an entertainment platform. Folks will actually project images of prior missions and prior pilots, and quite a bit of jury. There's a tomato stand nearby where they could be, where they could be horror pilots, could be laughed and jeered at. And on the left-hand side is a regular old power station where there's a lot of different tools that are meant to power this local substation and local radio tower. It's here where the tools on the left-hand side are where the bone of this local system are kept in top shape. Or, well, they're supposed to be kept in top shape. But there's a few cracks on the edges and you can see some rust of the generator. Which way would you like to go?
Alright, I think the right one is more controversial. So it's just a hunch. There's just tomatoes to throw. Let's go over there. Get some tomatoes thrown at me.
My dear Suji, how do you feel about the pilots of Pilot.net and folks that you play with on a regular basis? And how do you source related to that? How do you source your players, and how do you determine who is not going to be a good fit for your campaigns? What's your filtering mechanism?
I usually, well, the first filter is do I know them? And if I know them, that is usually, and I will probably have some sort of positive or negative prejudice towards them based on like how they talk and stuff.
Oh, prejudice based on how they talk. Oh man.
I don't know. Maybe that's not the best word. I don't know. I guess biases might be a better word than prejudice. Yeah, I think prejudice is a bit of a strong word.
Suji is not like confessing to being a racist.
No.
How do you filter your players? I'm a massive racist. That's probably not great.
Yeah, that would be controversial.
That would be controversial. I could fight you.
Fortunately, not something I believe on.
Yeah, that's not. I can fight you on that. I'm not sure you want to defend that position, though.
No. Oh my
man. But like, no. Okay, the way that people talk can be a huge problem. So maybe I don't fight with you specifically on that. But like, do you always get to know people beforehand?
Usually, no. A lot of people are kind of lurkers, unfortunately. So when I do like a posting in Lancer Game Recruiting, a lot of people who apply will not be people who are really active, or at least like active in the same space as I am.
Maybe from like soup to nuts, how does it work? You're getting ready for a campaign. We'll say a full campaign, right? Not a one shot. At the very least, something short term. Maybe maybe 2-3 months, and that's what most modules are. 2 to 4 missions.
Yeah, and that is something also I want to briefly touch on before. My first like big campaign was like about a year long, and it could have gone longer, but I think like some some scheduling issues and other. I don't know, the plot was kind of getting weaker. I think it was a good way. It wasn't a good way to end it, but it ended kind of like not in the best way. But it ended, and I wanted to two things. One is I want to do shorter ones because that is easier to tell a more self-contained story that doesn't have like a million different hooks that don't get explored because we don't have all the time.
Right.
But also, it's just easier to stay in schedule if it's shorter. People are willing to make room for a campaign that's shorter than a campaign that'll last for years, or maybe it'll last for years. So I really do enjoy like shorter campaigns, even if it doesn't mean it's also like some ups and downs, right? Just like the one shot thing. But as a GM, I'm a huge fan of short campaigns, and I'll probably continue to do those more and more. And what was the question? What was your question?
Oh, sorry about that. I was muted again. Yeah, so I could fight with you on that because the question was like, how do you filter people from soup to nuts? Because my argument was going to be Google Forms. Yeah, I think that a lot of the people who apply on Pilot, I think there's a huge. I think Pilot.net is a wonderful, wonderful community. It's superb. I really enjoy the people on there. Even the occasional annoying people who show up in like GM Corner or when you're asking for advice and the first thing that somebody says is don't do that or like you should look at a different system, blah blah blah. It's like really annoying. Even taking those people into account, I think it's a wonderful community. But I think there's like a bottom quintile, a bottom 20% of players who apply who are dedicated to ruining the experience for other people. Not consciously, but I think that they are. I think our existing filtering mechanisms don't work in the style of like for the style of conventional campaigns, especially short ones. There's so many people who are just like unwilling to commit to even a few sessions, or who immediately hop out, or like they'll be there for 2 sessions and then there's not any kind of cooperation, there's no chemistry with the other players, and they just bounce. And I don't think that you can actually. I think that those people are actually more destructive for a short campaign. Because the appeal of a short campaign, like we were discussing earlier, has like these. Has these different costs, pros and cons. Like one shot, you could get like one of the pros is supposed to be this boost that you're supposed to get, like this short punchy benefit that you would hope for in a shorter campaign, but just doesn't come through. If you have if these people make it into your campaign, if they sneak in and they flood, because they hop out constantly, they flood every single new post. Every single new post. I think that short campaigns are bad for Lancer, not because like short campaigns are inherently bad, though a little bit of bad. I have that opinion for other reasons. I think specifically bad for Lancer because of like the player pool has like this bottom 20% that's really bad for the game. I don't know, but now you have to disagree with me and say, actually, that's dumb. The advantage of a short campaign is.
I think it is kind of double-sided. The time crunch is definitely a big factor in short campaign. It has to be very focused. You're not gonna get like super deep exploration of like what the character could eventually grow to be or whatever. And that does mean if the cast has to change frequently, it will eat up time that we don't want to spend. So I would probably just usually ask for 4 players, so that if one drops out, there's still 3 that's still workable. I've seen some people go for 5 and for that insurance purpose as well, but I'm pretty happy with 3 to 4. I think that's just perfectly fine. Um, and I think that's just like not really something you can filter just by talking to them. You do have to kind of like play with them to really get that.
So you're like not gonna have you're not gonna know how to spot the bad people unless you
I
play
don't
with
think
them
so.
to begin with.
At least I don't know how. I
Yeah.
do like look at their posting history, see if there's anything to glean from that.
All right, good news. I'm now back in a space where I get to agree with you. The dice have deemed it so that I get to agree with you now. No, like it's. I think that's a really good like way to put it. Is like, hey, you can tell. You can't tell by what people are saying to you on these forums because they're applying for it. You do need these kinds of like test areas to see what they're going to see how they're going to respond to a campaign, but your options are really limited there as far as well, not limited. Like in pilot.net, you can actually see how they're responding to other people, and you can get a little bit of a sense of that because they're not performing for you in that moment. Through trying to get into your campaign, you can actually see maybe little glimpses of the real them and decide, I don't know if this person would be a good fit here. Or actually, hey, that's a pretty good thinker. I think I would want that person in my campaign. Maybe I prioritize them. So it's a unique facet as far as Lancer's concerned, as far as online play is concerned. Unique advantage. This
Yeah.
stuff is really good.
And as I
Would you
run more games, I do want to run some playtest one shots as I'm doing this. My like ideal goal is pretty much finish the entire draft by like the first week, and then playtest and polish over the second week. But that's a pretty high goal. I don't know if I'll
It's
actually get there.
doable. I mean, you got the time for it. That's definitely doable.
But I definitely want to do some playtests. And part of that is finding new players, getting to know those players, so that in the future, if I'm recruiting from here again, I will know more people who I like to play with. And that can also kind of act as a filter that we're talking about, where you don't really know what they're gonna be like until you play with them.
Yeah. I like that format in West Marches. I feel like I have more options for that. But that'll be a topic for a different room. I do always like to shoehorn in grand campaign discussions because they're a ton of fun. But would you like to stay in this room or would you like to go to another? Do you have more, do you think, on the topic of bad players and Pilot.net's cleanup problem? I don't even know how we would describe that.
Yeah, we could talk a little bit more about it. In my last
You
one,
described it as prejudice earlier and being racist, and that had me concerned.
Yeah,
but your rant was not over yet.
Actually, yeah, this is actually related to that. However, that's gonna come across. I'll explain.
Oh man!
I promise I'm not being racist. The first, so I had like 3 pages of like questions, in my last poll, and all in the entire first question is just like yes or no, and they're all asking like, hey, these are the expectations. Are you okay with this? Yes or no? And that's just like an initial filter. And yeah, sure, they can lie, but also it's just basically I'm telling them like, hey, these are the expectations. Are you okay with them? And sometimes people are just gonna be like, oh, I'm actually not okay with that, and maybe they'll leave.
Yeah.
And some of the questions is like, hey, we're not gonna have any tolerance for like racial bigotry, like bigotry based on like sex, gender, race, like a disability. I don't know, a bunch of stuff. And I think I listed like a couple more things, but I don't have them off my head right now.
Standard disclaimers for like, hey, I really don't want to hear the N word while I'm playing.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a problem?
That is also like a common line. I don't like using fantasy slurs. I know some people like them because it's like, I don't know, immersive or whatever. Like one that is like pretty accepted use is like clankers from Star Wars, where you just like refer to droids as the C word. It of course doesn't have
Oh,
like
Star
the
Wars
same
is full
kind
of
of.
that. Like every
Yeah.
season, they have a new slur that they've come up with
Oh
for.
no, I'm not following it that closely.
It's I was under the impression that you had a spreadsheet full of them based on your Google
No,
search
oh my
and some of your
goodness.
earlier suspicious comments.
Oh no. No, I don't have any prejudice towards droids.
We'll be watching you.
Nor do I keep a spreadsheet full of slurs. But yeah, that is something
Amazing.
I'm personally uncomfortable with, like coming up with slurs and using them in a flavorful way or whatever. It's just something I don't like to do. So I just say like, hey, let's not do this. And if you're not okay with that, I'm not playing with you and find a different table.
Yeah. And sure, people could lie, but then you have to be in a situation where like they want to be in your game, and they want to be in your game the way that you're running it for the most part, but also dislike this specific thing and want to lie about it, want to lie about something specific, so that they can sneak into this game that either they dislike, which is way less likely, or they really do like, but they want to lie about something on the application to begin with. Like that's a
Yeah, I mean, like if they lie about everything and then get in and ruin the experience, there's like not much I can do, right? I can't
yeah.
really foresee the future. Um, you just do what you can to filter out whatever, and then there's some other questions too, that just like help with the vibe check. Everything like beyond the first page is like more about like what kind of character are you thinking about, or like what are some things you like when you play,
Yeah.
things like that.
That was something I switched in my recent forums. I've talked about this on GM Corner a few times, but switching from like asking people to tell me about themselves versus I think your approach, which is asking commitments of people, right? How many sessions would you like to participate in? Yeah, blah blah blah. It's like how many sessions can you commit to? The implication of that is your answer here is important to like is an agreement between us, and kind of an explicit one, not a covert one. And asking about things like what do you value, what do you want to do, like these are more like explicit than anything else. Um, ask, Asking for instance like, hey, are you willing to, do you want to, what kind of build do you want to, blah blah blah. It's like what kind of build are you going to make if you join this campaign? What kind of build, or like what character narrative, it's a little bit harder with narrative questions, but what character backstory will you be integrating into the campaign, or how is your how is your character backstory going to contribute to the campaign, or give us more hooks, more plots, more enemies, downtime actions to go over, and wrap more threads basically to weave back into the campaign. What are you bringing to the table is what it sounds like is the general theme of your form, and that's a much better way to filter people out than just to have, I don't know, than just to ask people to talk about themselves generally. It's like your approach goes that extra step. Is the vibe I'm getting.
Sure, I think that's good. Yeah, I actually pulled up the form right now and I'm looking at it. This was for a different system. It's like a Lancer-like. It's called Beacon. It's like it's a mechanically most similar to Lancer, or like Lancer inspired, I think. I don't know like what the best description is, but some of the questions were like like the first question I mentioned, like bigotry of any kind will not be tolerated, including but not limited to blah blah blah. Is this okay with you? And there's yes or no. And next question is like, we're gonna have this thing in the game. Is this okay with you? I want to have like collaborative like world building. Is this okay with you? And it's yes or no, but there's also other option where you can just like type in and explain their situation. So if someone is like okay with it, but like they feel like they wouldn't be super good at improv, they can elaborate on that section.
Mhm.
I explained that the tone's gonna be pretty light. I explained what kind of things I care about in like a map design, in counter design. I don't have like a super high production value, quote unquote. That's the term I like to use to describe my style of map making. I see like a lot of assets here, right? And like it's fancy.
Right.
I don't do that because it's too
No,
much
this
work
is
for
a
me, in my
yeah.
opinion.
No, this is too much work.
Yeah,
That's
but
a subject of another room, by the way.
yeah,
I
something
guess
I
this
do
map.
actually care about is like the alignment of like the map. So like what spaces exactly does it occupy? Like this truck generator thing, for example, like is this a space occupied by the generator, or is it like can I be here?
I hate those
Does
questions
this
so
mean like
much. I get
is
so
this like
fucking.
1.5 spaces, or is it like one space that you can walk through here? This looks
It's
like one space.
yeah, it's a space of control, right? So that's like somebody can sneak by. Well, not sneak by there because somebody's adjacent to you and they begin movement out. Then
Right, but like if they're size 2, can they walk through here?
if they're size 2, that'd be a little trickier because I think actually let's see here, plus
And like
1
it's
are
fine,
there's a
right?
roof on this one. There's a roof on this
Oh,
one. That's what
okay.
the
All right,
credits
so that
are.
answers it. But my point isn't more so that like can I do it like right now, but I don't like having that discussion in the middle of session. I want
Yeah.
to have that be like 100% clear what is and what isn't. So that's why I use like Hexfriend is a tool that I use.
Mhm.
It's much more flat than this. It doesn't have like fancy assets, though I could add it in post editing. That I'm just not gonna do because I don't want to. But it's just a bunch of colored cells with icons, and that is the style that I use to make my maps because I want to be able to customize my maps. I want to be able to clear super clearly about what they are. Um, and then also focus on like what the NPCs do and how they interact with the environment and the enemies. Enemies being the players.
All
So
right.
yeah, and then I tell them like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. Is this okay with you? And if they're not okay with it and they're gonna complain about like, oh, can you use assets? Then like, no, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, no, that's totally appropriate, especially given
Yeah, but it's also like setting the expectation. It's
yeah.
not just saying like, hey, if this is not okay with you, like go away. It's just saying like, hey, this is what you can expect from me. If you don't like this, you probably won't enjoy this game.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's way more
Um,
understandable. Let's see.
so that was another section of that question. And then I asked like, how much experience do you have? And then I would kind of filter based on that. Like, I do want like couple experienced players, but I also want some like new players. I want some like forever GMs because they never get to play. I give like preferential treatment to them because I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um,
No, so I get that. I think I get the gist of your at this point. At this point, we do need to move on to another room so we can include all of our topics for tonight, or at least the most
all
important.
right. What
Where would
are?
you like to go next?
Oh, give me some hints. So
All right, the one to the
there's a tool
left.
discussion here.
Right, there's a tool discussion on the left and about the bones of the game. I guess related to the map discussion. Over to the right there, you could see an. Well, no. So from your perspective, if you're facing the left, then you could see a hint. You could see an elevator, basically, in the back area here. And then
All right.
this one, yeah, so we have the tool discussion over this way, and then we have an elevator about transitioning campaigns and transitioning one shots to other forms of or other styles of play.
All right, that sounds interesting. How much time do you have? I think we can go there. I think I like that. I talk about tools all the time in the GM chat. I
Yes.
think I would like to go to this elevator. Does this go straight down, or is it like 45-degree diagonal sci-fi elevator?
It's a slide-by elevator, so it goes down and it goes to a hub, basically. A hyperloop
Alright.
that's designed to take you all around the base that this system comms beacon is attached to. And here I'd like to ask, or I guess I'll say first, so all my cards are on the table. Whichever Lancer one-shot module I contribute, whether it's a redo or a refresh of the Typhon from Winter Scar, which I found really annoying when I was first reading it.
Sure.
I found extra annoying, like talking about it. Hey, you could just rewrite this. It's like, no. I'm never gonna run this for anybody. I might want to play it though, but I want to play it less reading this. I am
I think
whatever.
the big thing is that like
oh, go ahead.
nobody's gonna be ever like good enough to do whatever. You just do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect.
No, that's fair. But whichever one-shot module, because I don't want that to discourage people. It's like, hey, make stuff and learn, please.
Mhm.
If you're gonna make stuff, well, make stuff, and then if you're gonna make more stuff after you start making stuff, please learn something, anything. But when I contribute my Lancer one-shot module to this game jam, whatever the theme is, whether it's going to be like a murder mystery, or it's going to be the Typhon redo, or it's going to be like FTL but inside a single system, whichever one I choose, or some other fourth thing, I am going to write that module in a way that tries to transition you from like running this one-shot to having a campaign setting or soft launch for a campaign.
I like to call it campaign starter one shot.
Yeah. What do you think about them?
I think
And
that's
is
a
that,
good
like,
design
important?
space. Yeah, it can be used as like a brand new introduction, or it can be used as a I'm done with this module, where do I want to go next type thing, where it introduces you to a new place, and then you build off that. It kind of depends on how the one shot ends. Maybe you won't have too many like threads to go off of, or maybe it will have like way too many that you just like resolve through maybe like epilogue or something. If it's just like a normal one shot. But I'm sure like some people will design it to be a campaign starter. I think those are like the three main directions that the one shot can go, where it's like it's for new players, it's for fairly experienced players who's just trying like in between modules, which is stop by and then you go somewhere else, or it's like a starter to bigger story.
Keeping with the theme here and the hyperloop system that can take you all around the base and transport you all manner of different ways, what thought do you give, or should people give thought, do you think, to where the module is going to take people, right? Like, it's not just... Do you give any thought to, like, alright, this is not just, like, a positive gameplay experience if somebody sits down to play this? It's like, how is this going to change or improve your understanding of the game and your opportunities to play? Like, do you think about that when you're running even normal games or designing one-shot modules? Because I'm constantly looking at that, at the GM crisis in Lancer, and thinking like, this is totally screwed up. I don't think it needs to be this way at all. But I'm really hoping for... I don't know. I'm hoping for more people to run, and I'm hoping for more people to like get into more full campaigns. But that gap seems so big to people who've never crossed it that most of them just don't give it a shot. Like, what thought do you
where do
give
we go
to...
next?
Yeah.
Is that the question? I think I'm a little bit confused.
Yeah, no, because I've been rambling. That's why you're confused. Because I've said things which are confusing. That's totally understandable.
Sure.
And I've been speaking indirectly. What do you hope is going to come out of the one-shot module? if you had to pick something, like some kind of change in the Lancer community, what would that be?
Um,
And you can't say world
I just want to
peace.
see more one shots. That's really the big thing.
Okay.
Because I think there's two. I think someone mentioned there's like two like published module, and they're like both unofficial, which is fine. Like there's a ton of good third-party content in Lancer space,
Mhm.
so that it doesn't matter if it's like official or not. But there's like two. Like there's two Modelios, and I think the other one is it
The
used to be like
Corvette
the
job? Harrison
Corvette
Armory
job. Yeah,
Corvette
that
job?
used to be like the only one in a while, and I believe those are like the only two like really one shot content. The other
Mhm.
one's like more of like a mission long.
Yeah, one's a
I'm
little bit.
probably wrong here.
Corvette
I'm
job
sure
is
there's
like,
more one shots. Like that can't be
yeah.
right, you know?
Well, we
I
don't
don't
have
know
as
if
much
it's
mission content for Lancer because your mission availability is generally you either run something that's been published, third party or not, or you steal the structure of an existing there, which Lancer is actually really compatible with. But like you steal a module or a story from a different game or different franchise, different
oh yeah.
scenario. Which Lancer's really well equipped for accommodating, broadly speaking, but actually creating something from the ground up, from scratch, is where Lancer seems to have a lot of trouble.
I think from ground up is could you elaborate on that? I'm not sure if I follow.
The advice, okay, so if I look at something like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition, and this might not
Okay.
be the best example, if I look at the DMG, might not be the best example because a lot of people failed to read it. But that might be a failure
Sure.
of presentation rather than the advice. If you go through and read it, and you understand it, the campaign advice and the tools for creating campaigns are they proliferate through the entire game. They're very useful. You have means of generating dungeons randomly in a way that that ties into existing campaigns and will generate additional hooks for. There's random encounters for the rest of the. There's random encounters for the rest of the overworld. For instance, there are settlement generators for your points of light on the map and for larger polities. There's so many, and the procedures and the matrices that these kind of are supposed to develop into intersect perfectly with player progression, and provided you're following all of them, start to spread down if you start knocking a few screws loose. All the tools that you need to create a campaign from the ground up are there for you, and to scale it upwards, to scale the conflicts upwards. Right from make a dungeon, make a starting town, that will be your first area, and here is how you're supposed to expand outwards and kind of, as you add new threads to the campaign, weave them back into the web that's supposed to support you and your players. And it doesn't feel like Lancer doesn't have dungeons. Right. It doesn't have well, it could have dungeons, but it doesn't have like a system for like generating military installations and maps of those. Or I think that KTB did add some basically
Some faction
landmarks.
play.
Well, added
I
faction
think
play,
Long
which
Rim
is
also had
awesome.
something.
But not like the individual player scale mech combat. Like it's very difficult to generate, or there's no tools for generating the wider conflicts and missions and mission goals that wrap directly into your on the ground player experience. Which enemies are going to appear? Which conflicts are they going to fight over? Which objectives are they going to have? There's a few very high level tools or like bird's eye view tools for looking down at those and saying like, well, your generic mission goal is going to be like securing a VIP, and that's handy. But translating that, unlike something like AD&D First Edition, which I love, there's this big gap between that very high level bird's eye view goal and what encounters am I going to be fighting as a player? Where am I going to be fighting them? What's my context for fighting them? And how does my GM prepare and then present those scenarios to me as the player? That's the stuff that's like I don't know, that's a little bit more lacking in the rest of the system. And so when I to wrap this back up into the game jam, my hope is that people at the very least have enough content written by other people that they can slot those in and start to kind of get it themselves. That the tools, given that we don't have the tools, at the very least we could have enough missions ready to go for people to just swap out persons' names and places. That they can fit it into their own campaigns because they don't have the tools to build that from the ground. Does that make sense? I rambled a lot.
I think I like fell in and out of that chain. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's
that was
just
a
like
lot.
there's no dungeons for Lancer is the idea,
Right.
and
And
dungeons
it's harder
build
to-
up a lot of the game.
Right, and it's like harder to generate stuff like kind of organically is
Yeah.
what I'm kind of getting.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you generate it, it's like this faction exists, but not so much like this is how it connects to what's been going on.
Yeah, kind of
Is that true?
make it up in a
I think that is true.
vacuum.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if someone wants to create some tools to help do that, I think that would be pretty cool. I did specify that you don't have to add like a bunch of stuff to make it, like qualify as a submission. That is just something I wanted to do to make sure anyone can participate, as long as they keep the scope small. If they're like new to this stuff, like I'm pretty new to this stuff, and I just want to like finish something, so I'll probably not do too much fancy stuff. But I know there's like there's a 5-stack group somewhere. I know like there's a couple people who mentioned like, hey, we have a group of 5. I was like, wow, you actually have a group of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they'll come up with something, something more amazing with a bunch of. I don't know what they're gonna do, but I'm sure they'll make something very interesting.
I'm just saying, given that we don't have those tools, I think that having a ton of one shots is really handy because then you don't have to. You're not stuck looking for something that doesn't exist. You can just pull one of these one shots out there. It's like, okay, well, somebody made a train heist, so I guess our next mission is going to be a train heist because I can put that right into the campaign. It fits the context. Anything that doesn't fit, I can substitute out from something that's already in the campaign.
Oh,
And
okay, I see what you mean.
like kind of that your one shots are becoming the community tool is what it sounds like, which is a very noble goal, and I think going to be successful. Because what do you need besides?
No, I didn't even think that hard when I was making this. I just, I just wanted to. When I was first making this, I just wanted to do it myself.
Mhm.
And I just wanted there to be a jam, so I made it so that there is a jam.
Let's talk about that game jam in
hard.
another room.
Yeah, I wasn't like, I wouldn't describe myself or like this effort as like noble. I just wanted to do something, and I'm doing it.
All right, there is your transponder activates and is telling you that there is an armory north of your position here.
All right.
And you will be free to examine. You still have some time before before the enemy forces start bearing down on you. The Horizon Collective cell used to own this place comes back for it. But the prototype weapon is there to be secured in the north end, and there are, let's see here, and you will still have time for at least probably another room after this one.
Oh no, I'm fighting Horizon Collective. I
You
didn't know
are.
that. Can I join them? No. Yeah. Let's go.
Probably.
What is this place?
It depends on who you're affiliated with. If they think you're Union
yeah.
intelligence, they're going to be very upset. My players just exposed a Union intelligence spy in their.
Yeah. That'll make things pretty difficult. Okay. So what are my options?
All right. So right to the left here, we have the armory, the prototype weapon you were sent to here to find and evaluate. Something about it's a weapon that shoots jam. or causes the
wonderful.
jammed condition, to be specific. But it's a
Yeah,
really
I am jammed
frothy
until end
red
of the
substance.
year.
And then the north end is just your method of escape. And the one on the right here is that one's just a bunch of spare parts. That's made for spare parts and decorations for the Christmas season. Things that can make the Horizon Collective's home here a little bit more thematically appropriate for their individual seasons. So which would you like to go with first? Or next, I should say.
I feel like this is the most important place. Let's go over there.
Right. All right. So we got the game jam. It's time to discuss the specifics of it. Now that you've mentioned that you didn't start it for noble goals, which is fine. That's fine. Lots of people do cool things without starting noble goals, but I want to make sure that they know that noble goals can be kind of like extruded out of that or extracted out of them. And encourage that, because I think it's really cool. Like, what you did is really cool. Let's talk about what you did, and not why I think you should be doing it. But let's talk about the jam itself. What's it about? What's your process here going to be like over the next month?
So the jam itself, what I expect out of the participants is to make something in a PDF format and submit it in time. I listed things that are optional, and some of the things that are optional. And the reason why I specified it that way is because I don't want people to feel like they need to include these things, just because it is conventional to include these things. Let me pull up the jam page right here.
I think one of them was pre-generated character sheets, or pre-generated characters, making those available. Focusing it on new players, that's a big one, because mine is not going to be focused on new players.
Yeah, I think I put it in other consideration. The list of optional requirements that you don't have to include, I listed, is a battle map, custom-made art, new sitrep type. You don't have to make an EPUB version. You don't have to make LCP or JSON export NPCs, and you don't have to make new frame, new licenses, new NPCs, or new NPC templates. And a lot of the third-party content has these things, and it can feel like they are a requirement if you're making something. And I want to lower the barrier of entry as low as possible, so that more people can just try their hands at it. If they have none of these things, it's probably just a little bit of narrative, which is fine. I think that's fine. We don't have any of those yet, and I'm sure people will benefit from it. Actually, it is kind of similar to my previous work, which is just 40 hooks.
Can you,
and they're just
before we go to 40 hooks, can you tell me a little bit more about what you're talking about with narrative? I feel like I missed something there.
Yeah, so based on these things that are optional, right? If you include none of these things, it's probably just a little bit of narrative, and I guess you could include the op4, composition. I didn't specify that. I would also include that as an optional thing.
Yeah.
But
a lot
if you
of people
just
are
had
thinking
some
one narrative scene and one combat scene, right?
Yeah, so if you just have some narrative and the op4, that's fine. Without the map, just this is the op4, here, go make fights. I think that's fine. If you don't even have a fight, I think that's okay. It's a little bit unusual, but I think that's fine.
Speaking of fights, I think I now I have to. I rolled a 6, and I must fight with you, Suji. Why did you not put down specific requirements for the number of combats and number of narrative scenes? Why didn't you tell them no combat? Actually, you will have 3 narrative scenes at least. You will have between 3 and 9 narrative scenes, and we're gonna teach people how to do quick narrative scenes that don't take 1 billion hours. And let people fit in more between their individual. Why have you not inspired people to run to run narrative beats a la No Room for Wallflower Act 1. Why is this not the narrative beat one-shot module jam? The guys have
I think
compelled
it's still
me
the
to
same thing.
castigate you.
Yeah, it's just the making it low stakes, so that the barrier of entry is very low, so that anyone who is interested can do it. But also, I did put in like some requirements. They're not
Okay.
really about the content itself. It's about like follow the Lancer third-party license. You kind of have to because it's going to be for Lancer.
Right.
You should have a PDF file. That's probably like the hardest requirement that I have in there. You have to export it as a PDF. So no docx, no .jpeg.
I can't send you my latex like GitHub page.
No latex, no freaking markdown. I don't know. No HTML.
I do develop things in latex first, but then I use that to generate the PDF.
Yeah, and like even if you make it in those formats, you can still turn it into a PDF.
Yeah, you can turn it into a PDF. If you can't, then
like
what
a
are you doing?
standard-ish format that people use. So I think it's fine to ask people to turn it into a PDF.
Yes.
So it's like a hard requirement, as in like it's specific, but it's not like a difficult requirement.
No, not at all. But to your point there, they're not the content ones would be the hard requirement. But I think,
and that was the question, right?
Or the dice are telling me that I think that should be that's where the hard requirements should live, or those should
like the content.
Yeah, content to give people more. I don't know, like structure, not in terms of okay, this is the ideal structure for one shot, but in terms of okay, if we're going to evaluate one another based on what we can do within this space, sure, we want to keep the barrier to entry low, but I don't think it should be so low that people who are new have very little direction. I don't think that they should start with do whatever you want. I think they should start with a little bit of a skill challenge here, a little bit of an execution challenge. What can you do with 3 to 9 narrative scenes? How would you structure, if you had to, how would you structure a Lancer one-shot such that it could accommodate 4 combat in one 3 to 6 hour session?
Oh man, I don't think
I would love to see that.
Not possible, but
it is possible. It's very possible, but people aren't doing it.
It's probably possible. We could probably try harder, subvert some of our expectations to make it happen.
As the dice.
I'm sure we can have like 30-minute combats and 30-minute narrative scenes in between to fit like 3 fights in one session, maybe. I don't know.
3 snipers, go.
Moving on. That sounds like a lot. Because you're going to
3 snipers are going to like structure somebody and then they're going to die.
Yeah.
If the players know ahead of time, there's no reinforcements. Like that's going to be like, all right, a little bit of attrition, fine, but like that progression of you first, because I think I was about to respond to something that you were about to say. It's way more interesting when I hear your thing first. And then I respond to it.
It's like if you do, for example, let's say you make a 30-minute combat and you can, I think like a normal fast turn is like 10 to 20 minutes, 10 to 15 maybe.
I think a normal fast turn is like 2 or 3 minutes. That's my game.
No, sorry, like one round.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say it was like 20 minutes for like that's... We're skipping to the next person.
Yeah. So if we do, let's say we have 10 minutes per round.
Mm-hmm.
If we're gonna fit a combat within 1 round, that's 3 rounds. And you have to kind of account for the new players like learning the game too, right? Yeah. So it's realistically gonna be like 1 to 2 rounds, and that's it's just not a combat. It's 1 to 2 rounds, I think. If an objective can be resolved in 1 to 2 rounds, I think it should be probably done in narrative.
Okay. I see. I disagree with that only because I think speedy combat or Lancer. Okay, don't get me wrong. Lancer does benefit more than other games from having like wave defenses. I don't think they're as fun in something like D&D. I think in D&D it's way more important to, or those kinds of like dungeon crawlers thing, it's way more important for progress to be represented not just by defeating enemies, but also changing locations at a very rapid pace. So sort of like the early days of like how many, our measure of progress, how many rooms have we cleared? Literally being a measure of progress for people. I think that's less true in Lancer, but Lancer I think still does benefit from having quick scene changes for like, all right, it's a patrol that's out here. Your objective, in a sense, is to kill these people before they pop flares, right? We have an operator with us, we have an NPC operator, he's gonna jam them, or he's gonna jam their outbound comms. And your job is to kill them before they can send up physical markers or physical warnings of your trespass here. And we just keep moving forward. We get to the installation, the research base that we're in right now, the system beacon, and we're going to make it to the door. And sure, this is a large map that can be fought all at once, but there's a bunch of like smaller objectives in here that can probably be resolved really quickly. I think that sense of progress is really, it's a little bit more intense on the GM in terms of having new places to fight people. But if you're not loading a ton of time into creating maps to begin with, I think it's a lot less work on the GM because they don't have to worry about, I think that expectation of resolve this beat quickly, have another beat, gets people in this mindset where they're never really left hanging if something goes faster than they were expecting. Something goes slower than they were expecting, then they have a lot of resources in the back. But does that make sense? Like, how have you ever been in a situation where, like, you planned a certain number of encounters for the night, the players blew through them for whatever reason, and you were like,
I got for sure.
You know?
I planned this for like, oh, this will be like an 8-rounder, and they finished in like 4 because they were rolling really good, or they were superior tactics, and I make mistakes, or for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Or I just like
it's the variability of the dice.
It can just happen. I don't think having another combat in the back of that is necessarily the right answer. Okay. Especially if you plan the combat itself to be like the centerpiece, right? Like 2 to 3 hour type thing.
My dice are telling me to prepare 3 bosses. If we're doing a combat heavy session, is prepare like 3 set piece encounters or like 3 bosses that are going to be big, and then like whatever the players start dumping cores on is not going to be the set piece because that'll be what they resolve quickly, most likely, or through random rolls. The variability of the dice resolve quickly.
Maybe it's just my personal experience, but I don't think any combat went so fast that I can fit 2 full combats in there with the narrative in between.
When we're talking full combats, we're talking like, like probably 4 to 6 rounds at least, and like waves in Lancer. Lancer is like a dedicated thing for those of you watching and not familiar. Lancer is a dedicated thing for deploying enemy reinforcements in the middle of a battle. And if players are not clearing out either the original enemies or the reinforcements, even if they're just grunts, 1 HP minions, that can very quickly death spiral in a way that prolongs the combat significantly. So the players either get destroyed, they retreat, they fail their objective, or they manage to pull themselves out. So you're right. There's a huge risk of something taking a lot longer in a combat. Or I don't even say risk isn't the right word, right? Like it's to be expected that it's going to take a while for full combat.
Right. You have like an expectation of like 2 to 3 hour long combat. I think that's a fair expectation. Unless you're like, the first time learning the game, everyone's new. I think my first combat took maybe like 2 full sessions.
Oh, wow.
Because we're trying to understand what you're supposed to do as you go. And that's kind of an outlier, I think. I think a lot of people have better experience with that. Better as in faster.
Right. I guess the risk that my brain was like trying to eject into me earlier. Here, let me make another roll. Definitely been at least 10 minutes now. I think the risk that my brain was trying to imply earlier is the risk that if you were trying to make, or if you come in with the expectation that a combat's going to be very fast, you're risking having a bunch of what might feel like padded or filler content waiting for the players if one of those combats goes unexpectedly. Like, I don't know, like all three of our pirate snipers, which are supposed to be horrifically outmatched and outgunned, happen to all crit the players, structure them, and get and that results in the players getting stunned or something like that.
Sure, yeah. You can definitely get stun chained sometimes. It
Yeah,
happens.
all of a sudden that combat's going to take a lot longer because that's going to, it's not going to death spiral, but it's going to put players on the back foot for like another round or two, and their choices there can easily give the enemies another 2 rounds of life at that point. And then you're looking at a 5-round combat for what should have been probably half a round. 3
Sure.
snipers.
Yeah, and to that, going back to the original question, I think I didn't really consider why, like, what are the consequences of thing being too short versus too long by accident. I think it's generally fine for a one shot to be too short.
Mm-hmm.
If you finish all the content, then you're done. You don't have to fill out the next hour with stuff. You can just be done, and that's okay.
Yeah, like it's like finishing a board game. I've called RPGs in the past, like one shots in the past, board games with an RPG pretense, which is a little bit disparaging. But also, board games are, come on, they are fun. And it's like if you have an objective and you finish it early, that's so be it. You don't have to artificially stretch it out. I think you're right about that.
So I will stand by my decision of not including any content guidance.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not what I considered before. And I think that is a good question. Why not have like, you should have one narrative scene and one combat?
Well, that was the dice forcing me to ask that question.
Yeah, sure.
Would you do one in the now that you've I said that now that you've done that, after this, after you've had a chance to survey the field and see the variability in what people come up with, do you think that you'll be more likely or less likely to do something more focused in the future?
I
say more focused, like one shot isn't already focused.
Sure. I mean, I would have to see the submission first, I think. I know there's 94 participants as of now.
Come on, you gotta have a guess. You gotta have a feeling, a vibe that no, I will, or don't actually.
Personally, my I don't want to say goal because it's not something I'm gonna be working towards, but I hope for hitting 100 participants by the beginning. And we have some time still. We have less than 2 weeks. Maybe we can get 6 more people to join. That would be a nice round 100. But more importantly, I think I want to see at least 10 submissions. And that's 10% rate. That's pretty. I think that's pretty low, pretty conservative.
Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, with the number of people doing teams, I mean, some of those people will not have marked themselves as participating, possibly, if they're joining a separate team. But and on the flip side, so we might already be up to more than 100 participants, I would expect. I know one person who's working with me I don't think they've marked themselves as participating in the jam, but they are in my Discord and we're discussing DMs.
Okay.
I think that, so you probably are over 100 participants already, which congratulations. 94 already is huge.
94 is already, way more than I expected.
like tremendously successful. Like people are like, you came up with something cool. People are invested in this, absolutely. I think 10 submissions, if we assume that like let's assume that half of those are coming from a team, that's a really good chunk of people for like I mean in sales you want like at least like a 30% close rate on some of this stuff. For people who are calling you to ask around and shop around, like 30% is good for a lot of people. I think that you could easily hit 30% of these participants having contributed to the number of submissions that come in. And I think that 10 would be an excellent number. That's a smorgasbord for people to choose from. And
Yeah,
probably the
yeah,
level
for
range
sure.
of those is going to be like Lancer, it's 1 to 12. Well, technically 0 to 12, right?
If we get like abysmally low rate of like there's 100 people sign up, there's 10 total submissions, and maybe for whatever reason 8 out of 10 is like not even fully complete, and they just kind of like put a half finished work out there and they don't
Yeah.
want to finish it. That's like, I don't know, that's like beyond worst case scenario, right? I don't think
That
that's
would be rough.
realistic at all, really. But even in that case, there's like 2 pretty good ones, and that's 2 more good one shots in the field.
You'll be remembered for those 2 good ones way more than I think you will be
I
remembered
hope
for
the
the 2
actual
good
creators
ones.
get remembered more, but
No, not at all. I
yeah,
hope they fade
not at
into
all.
obscurity. Only I hope they fade into obscurity and only you are credited. But I think
Oh
that
man.
the 8 bad ones in that worst case scenario would be I think that they would be remembered. Well, not remembered. I think that like just their works would be remembered as being like kind of crappy, unfortunate, like this is kind of like half polished. But even then, I think those people might go to the next jam and
Yeah, even in
with
the worst case scenario, they've got experience,
yeah,
and they might be more willing to do stuff like this in the future. Maybe as a part of the
making
pitch
something,
study, or maybe not.
yeah. Like making something from soup to nuts is an experience. I used to like do because a bunch of my Kickstarters were like usually like a month or two late when I was making them because there's like always extra stuff that I could put in. And then I did a really big
Sure,
Kickstarter, and that's still late because it was a team project
sure.
and the
Yeah, yeah.
team left, so I'm just on the hook.
Oh,
So and I'm washing my hands of it after this month. It's like, all right, this is the stuff that's out. Everything else is coming out for Pathfinder Second Edition. I'm washing my. Sorry, folks. I did what I could, and I completed it. It's just not what I wanted it to be. But the experience of making something from soup to nuts, I think, is so important because while I was still working on that Kickstarter, I did do a small one that was to just make a zine game. Can I make something from soup to nuts? Can I just make something small? It doesn't have to be amazing, doesn't have to be all encompassing or whatever. I just made a tiny little zine game. It was something I liked. There were a couple of cool ideas in there. It wasn't fully fleshed out. I did a revised edition 1 year later, and the revised edition I actually think like is something I'm actually genuinely proud of. But the first time I did it, constraining myself to something like 50 pages max, taught me that like, hey, you can or confirm that like you can just make something. You can make something, you can put it out, it can be complete, and it doesn't have to be amazing. You can return to it later, but this habit people have of trying to make something that's huge and expansive and never has a definitive end in sight because they're nervous that they need that having they're nervous and they think that having more will protect them from getting something in the middle wrong. That habit needs to end. I think that this game jam is superb for just getting people to like it's a one shot. Doesn't have to be huge. In fact, it really shouldn't be huge. Make it, get it out, see what people think, and you can always and I would encourage people, I think you would agree with this. Return to it later if you're dissatisfied with something or if you think that there was another layer, another loop, another encounter or level that would have made this really sing, you could get back to it later.
and a lot of games are like that. I know web fishing is like a pretty recently popular game, and that started as a one shot, or like not one shot, as a jam game, and then it got developed into like a full release, and it's like I would say it's very successful.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't need to be a hit on your first try. It just needs to be like, all right, do you have something creative here, right? Do you have the bones of something creative and like entertaining?
And like it being a hit is nice, but also like if your like livelihood doesn't depend on this or anything like that, like it doesn't even have to be a hit. Like if 5 people enjoyed my content, I'm happy with it.
Hell
Like
yeah.
that's
We did like a bunch of my buddies got together and said, okay, we're all gonna get like a bunch of faction descriptions together, and we're gonna give people who are running their D&D campaigns these factions and a structure called a Bronstein. You may have seen me yell about this about 80 times on the fucking Lancer server. Like,
yeah, I've seen it a couple of times.
yeah, it's which we just did a session version of it last week, which is excellent. There's a bunch of robot. There's a bunch of replicators. I guess in Lancer terms, the Maw is the sentient Blackwash. That, yeah, no, there's one of those
Or
factions is
Gray,
starting
I
to.
think, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was thinking of. It's a lot of fun. We just got that PDF together in a month. A bunch of people contributed factions. They did one faction apiece. There were some essays in there about how to run it and why it was released for free. And a lot of people downloaded it. But like it's a labor of love. It's a hobby. I think if it's not something that your livelihood depends on, God, that was so fresh. That was so good of you to say. Like if your livelihood doesn't depend on it, like you could just soak in the enjoyment of making something.
Yeah. And I think that also kind of relates to a pretty common question was, is this going to be like rated? Will there be like a winner? Will there be a reward?
Mm-hmm.
And like my personal reason for not having it is because I don't feel qualified to be the judge. And I don't want to find people who are qualified and like figure out who is qualified and who isn't. Like I don't want to be on that hook. And I also don't want to give out any rewards because I don't want to spend money on a thing that I'm just doing for fun.
Yeah, the game jam is free.
Yeah, but something other people brought up is that if there is a winner, it's gonna create this competitive thing where it creates like a perverse incentive for you to win, other people have to lose. And that is not an environment we want to create. We want people to help each other, not just try to get as much as possible from others without giving back as much to increase your chance of winning slightly. That's just like not a good environment to work in.
You don't want like meta competition between people where like they're poaching teammates.
Don't do that.
It is competitive already. I am intending to win, even if there is no like official win condition. I'm still going for it.
Yeah,
it's
nice to like for people to say like, oh, I think this is the best one. Like even if there's no objective measure for it, it feels nice.
Yeah, but like not in a way that's like gonna denigrate.
Yeah, I don't think I have to attach an external reward for it.
Yeah,
I think that'll actually make things worse.
I don't need the external reward to be competitive with it. Like that's just like I do want to win the flower smelling competition. I'm already there. I don't want somebody else to like do underhanded crap to me to win the flower smelling competition because then it's not about smelling the flowers. It's now about like again poaching teammates or doing some other weird stuff.
I think there was something else. Oh yeah, and if you do want to make it paid, that's not one of the requirements. You can make it paid. You can make it pay what you want. You can make it free. Any of them is fine as long as you like have the licenses for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the other requirements. Like it's not really my requirement. I'm just like reminding people that you should follow this. Like don't make illegal stuff. But yeah, I mean, if you want to have paid content to create like fancy stuff for your thing, Like I know some people is like commissioning like mech art or backgrounds or something. I don't know what they're doing. Some people are commissioning something.
Some page spreads, probably.
Yeah, and they're probably going to like. My understanding is they're actually getting paid, and they want to charge money for the finished products, so that they can like recoup the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine, it's reasonable, but also like I don't want to ask people to like put a price tag on their stuff. The main reason is because like it's kind of a pain to set up if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just like setting up payment stuff, it's fine if
Especially
you
on
know what you're doing.
itch.io.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I get
it's
it.
fine
It's
if
like
you want to do it. Yeah,
it's
I don't
not
want to make that a requirement.
Yeah, it's not about doing the paid game thing. It's like, all right, so you can recoup your costs. That's totally fine. That is not a require. Making something which requires you to then recoup your costs is not a requirement to join the game jam. And just again, like that hobby focus, that labor of love focus, where we're not all just like PDF merchants. It's like, no, we can just make something for the benefit of other people. See, I knew that like you do have these noble goals. They are in there. They just come out of you so naturally.
Yeah.
That they were not made super explicit in the game jam. Some of them were, but like,
All right, I'll take that compliment. Sure.
yeah, you deserve it because you did something really really cool.
No, I have a secret goal to make everyone pay me fees or something. I don't know.
Well, you can save that for down the line,
Yeah.
right? If you want to recoup on your like investment in the hobby later on, that's totally fine. It's like, all right, this is where the pay 2 years down the line. We've done like 18 game jams that we could finally give Lancer players just the full catalog of stuff that they can play at any given one moment. And you feel okay with taking money at that point, you probably should.
Sure. Not my consideration at the moment, but that is sure. I can consider it in the future.
Yeah, we can tempt you later. At the moment, we're just like making a better hobby, and you specifically are making a better hobby.
Yeah,
which is good. Like you should feel proud of that. All right, so at this point, I think that the Horizon Collective will be descending upon this base at any moment. Was there any other things that you would like to discuss or rooms that you'd like to explore?
let's go to that. Probably don't have much time to do another thing, right?
If you want to go over it briefly, take a look around, see the Christmas decorations, and go over the themes of your submissions.
What did they have here?
There are Christmas decorations, Halloween decorations, and let's see here, there appears to be a setup for Aztec blood sacrifices. I don't know which holiday that was.
It's future.
Could be anything.
It's like a combination of things.
Could have been a daily occurrence if people wanted to. The Horizon Collective, who knows what they're doing with it. Might not actually be blood sacrifice. But how are you how is the theme looking? Because we actually are choosing a theme. I buried the lead earlier. Sure, you don't have a bunch of requirements for how many encounters and how many narrative encounters and stuff like that, but we do have a requirement, soft requirement at the very least, follow a theme, which is currently being selected.
Correct. Yeah, there is a poll going on right now. You can follow the link on the. I don't know what the link is.
Description.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. Yeah, there is a poll, and you can vote on it. And
what are some of the themes in there, especially the ones that you're interested in?
Yeah, there's a total of 10, and I think they're all potentially good. And they're based on some of the theme suggestions that I received over like the past couple weeks, and there were almost 70 suggestions, and I kind of like distilled them down into these 10. And the themes are, and you can see them in the whole bottom. There's trophy, crime, revolution, Generation, Secrets, Train, Reclamation, Leviathan, Two Worlds, and Gamble.
And Gamble, that's right.
Yeah, I'm partial to some of them. I don't wanna
No, you have to say
cause my
it.
bias
Come on.
too much. I am like a pretty big fan of Trophy. It can be like trophy fighting. Yeah, it can be like competitive fighting. It could be like rescuing a trophy wife from being married off somewhere. Maybe you're trying to
get your trophy wife back.
Sure, yeah. Maybe you're trying to win a trophy. Maybe you're like hunting for trophy.
Trophy hunt. Pretty good.
Yeah, there's a lot of different directions it can go in.
A mech-sized big game preserve. Trophy hunting has been like, well, that's trophy hunting is a separate topic, and whether it's been a lot of American conservationism kind of revolves around trophy hunting and stuff like that, and it's done a pretty decent job at like keeping up the numbers of a lot of different endangered species and bringing them out of endangered. I shouldn't say bring them out explicitly by hunting them, but point being, like there's been a conservationist effort to bring back a lot of these critters, and trophy hunting is part of that ecology. And God, it would be really interesting to see that on a mech size.
Yeah, that is a very cool thing you can do. I also really like generation. It can be like power generation. It can be like generations of people. It could be like generations of clones. What else do I like? Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of like two worlds as well. Like, what are the two different worlds? Is it like literally two different planets? Maybe it's like colonizers versus the colonized, like the so-called new world and the old world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of arcanes about the top side and the undercity that can be like two worlds. Great show, by the way.
That's a really good example.
Yeah, there's a lot of, but I do believe like they all have broad enough potential for people to make a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I do want people to vote for whatever they think are good.
I voted for, let's see here. There's Leviathan, which is always going to be one of my anti-tax collection novel. Is somewhere in the back of my head.
Yeah, it could be like a big creature. Maybe it can be like in reference to that book Leviathan about like I don't know, something about like powerful government.
Yeah, there's also Criminal, which is interesting. I just ran a murder mystery inside Lancer because somebody else in GM Corner asked how they would do it, and they got a lot of crappy advice that had nothing to do with running mysteries, which is unfortunate. They're like, "Oh, well, are you sure that you could do a mystery in Lancer?" They're like, "What are you talking about? It's built off all the narrative stuff is built off Blades in the Dark. Like, yes, you can do a mystery. If you can't do a mystery in Blades in the Dark, you cannot do a mystery in tabletop RPG." So I did that, and now I'm like, oh, I gotta do. There's so much that Lancer has in common with Traveler. It feels like classic Traveler, and there's a classic Traveler module called Murder on Arcturus Station, with a bunch of like a lot of the evidence around a murder focuses on just like not just the different potential motives for your individual suspects, like proper suspects. I think that you're actually supposed to select who was the actual murderer, and it provides you so much evidence that people can look at and discover, like about the times between when this person was murdered and whether people are lying about where they were. Oh, good. And we just fit right in a Lancer module. I'm really excited. I don't mean to like take over. It's just like I'm really, really excited.
No, yeah, and another thing I want to mention about the themes is if you want to do a murder mystery, you can do it in a lot of these themes. It can be happening if it picks Revolution. Maybe it's happening in a space station that's providing artificial graphics like revolution of the station, or maybe it can be like a literal more political type revolution. And there's
You could do it in
mystery going on during
Leviathan.
that. Yeah, you can do it
Fucking
in Leviathan,
revolutionary
you can
hit
do
the
it in
murder.
like any of these can support murder mystery. It's just going to feel a little bit different.
Yeah, the context surrounding it is going to be it's why I wanted to at the very least before we left dip into the themes. So thank you for indulging me, because they were well selected to
I
provide.
Definitely don't want people to feel like they're restricted by the theme.
Right.
It is definitely a restriction, right? Because it is like a limitation of what you can and can't do. But the restriction is not as strict as it would initially seem.
Yeah. It's I like to call, people say all the time, like, restrictions breed creativity, and that's a lie that, like, some non-creative people took from, like, sort of constructed by listening to creative people talk about creativity. But, like, there's a deeper truth, which is that, like, restrictions wipe out different strata of answers. And so, while they don't breed creativity, because you can't breed creativity, I don't think. And I think the science agrees with me on that, broadly speaking. But what restrictions do breed is clarity. Clarity is of immense utility. It's fantastically useful for creative people, because you are wiping out noise, and now they can now they can find the signal and track it down. Like, what do they want to focus on? What do they want to drill down on while they're developing this mod? Like, what matters to me? I'm approaching this as a hobby. It's a labor of love. I'm gonna spend some time on it, and I really want it to be good. Maybe competitively, maybe maybe I have some other mental schema that I'm gonna seek out here. What matters to me as I'm making this? Clarity in that design environment is essential, honestly, because otherwise you're just kind of like stumbling around in the dark. They're really well selected, and I think it speaks to a creative and well-sorted mind that came up with this game jam to begin with. So I want to thank you again for coming up.
Yeah, I have to thank all the people who submitted suggestions, so that I can make these 10.
How many suggestions did you get, by the way? It was like over 100, right?
No, it was. So I said just under 70, and that's just because I didn't want to say 69. But we got 69.
I'm not gonna say
it's the funny number, sure.
I'm not gonna say. No, that's excellent. That's a ton of suggestions.
It is, yeah. And I couldn't find like the 10 to cover everything, because it was a little bit difficult. But I tried to cover almost everything.
I think you got an excellent selection in there.
Yeah, and I think this is pretty good. One that I wanted to put in but didn't make it was heart. It can be like you're getting into a heart of something. You're maybe like someone's like romantic interest. That can be heart. Maybe it's like a physical heart of something as like an object. It can mean a lot of things. It can be like hearts and minds of people. There was like space, but that seemed like way too vague. I don't think people would really feel super inspired by space, sci-fi game.
That's an example of like a restriction that wipes out, that doesn't breed creativity explicitly, because it wipes out a strata of all the obvious answers that you would have gone with, and also anything that was relatively specific, because space is anti-clarity. I would have loved a Lancer dating sim module, though. That would have
Lancer dating sim.
Next time. There's always time.
I have talked about in general chat. Probably not as like a module, but like just as like a shitpost.
It needs a full campaign.
I think it would just be like, I don't think it would be a Lancer module. It would be like just using Lancer setting, kind of. It's like a Lancer high school where different mechs go to this school. It's like Hot Tofu Boyfriend, where you go to like a school full of birds, and then you're like the only human. Except it's
No.
like school of mechs, and you're the only pilot.
Nah, you gotta have like Love Bloom on the battlefield. It's gotta. We need
Oh, okay,
to.
yeah, that's actually way more reasonable and less
Yeah.
shitposty.
We've gotta have like. We need the Metal Gear. We definitely. We need. I'm sorry. We just. We need Metal Gear. Lancer dating sim. We gotta unleash like just the absolute freak and masterful cinema in one. It has
No.
to like. We could do it.
Be the change you want to see in the world, you know?
Next, hey, after
That's how
maybe
this
I'll do a
started.
game jam. We'll see what happens. I
Yeah,
gotta get
maybe
more
you'll do
into the pilot
Lancer
update
Dating Sim
community.
Game Jam.
Yes. All right. Anything else that you wanted to chat about? Anything that you'd like to plug before we head off here?
No, I'm just excited to see everyone at during the jam. Hope they, talk about stuff, ask people stuff as they're designing it. And I guess you can plug your announcement jam or announcement stream. Yeah.
Yes. So we have the Lancer One
If
Shot
it
Module
happens.
Jam.
I know that's like a little bit of a difficult time for you. You said.
Oh, for the next my stream. Yes, we'll do it in the middle. Basically, I will take my lunch hour, and it will be a very brief one, just to hop on and go on stream, and you can stream at the same time because yours will probably run longer than mine will, but I will probably be there for about half an hour to an hour, and depending on how
maybe
long my
I'll
lunch
just do it
goes.
in the server or something.
Yeah, but I will have you on for half an hour to an hour so I can expose it to my audience and show
Sure,
them.
yeah, I'll
Hey, this is
appreciate
on.
that. I'll probably make a PowerPoint or something.
Actually, wait, maybe it won't be a stream. Maybe it'll just be like a video, and that will probably actually because my audience does not watch streams as often as they do regular videos. And
I
if it gets
see.
released on like a Sunday or a Monday, we'll talk about it later. But we will do it.
Yeah. So no promises on what it's gonna be, what it's gonna look like, but the theme will be announced when the clock hits 0 or around that time.
I am very hyped. All right, folks, you have yourselves a good evening. Suji, thank you again for chatting with me. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I look forward to our next chat.
Yeah, this was a great time, great experience. Thank you for having me, and I'll see all of you during the jam.
See you, folks. And the stream is ended.